So my name is Petter Alvstén. In English I say Peter, and in Finnish I say Petri. I'm from the very south of Sweden, and I'm responsible for UC's consumer information business, which is normally what you associate with UC, the credit information and also the market information. I've always been a huge fan of savings and personal finance. I started my career at a savings platform called Nordnet. It's a Nordic savings platform. I was there for roughly 7 years, and then I wanted to expand my knowledge and skill set to credit and loans. So I started at UC. I saw the opportunities with data, scoring, automatization, and been here for almost 7 years as well. So UC, we are the leading credit information company in Sweden. We are part of Enento Group, which is a Nordic stock-listed company at Nasdaq Helsinki. And Enento Group have business in Sweden, Norway, Denmark and Finland. But especially in Sweden, we have a leading role with UC. And in Finland, we have a leading role with Asiakastieto, which have the similar market position. So UC, we're quite an old company. A bit over 50 years, and we were started by the banks to provide credit information services. Up until 2018, we were actually owned by the banks, and then we merged with Asiakastieto to form Enento Group. So credit has always been our core. The key mission from UC's former board that consisted of banks were like build a better credit score for us on an annual basis. So credit and risk is in our blood. We have also quite extensive coverage of information. In Sweden, there's a lot of open public data, and there's also a huge acceptance for companies to work with that data. We have a special legislation that allows us to source the data for all individuals without consent, and we're able to provide it within certain regulatory elements. There need to be a legitimate need to consume the data. We need to inform the consumer that your data has been consumed and what data has been consumed as well. So we have good data coverage, and also we are the ones who have built the Swedish credit register, where we have all mortgages, 99.9% of the unsecured loans and student loans, of course, and we're expanding that credit register to be able to provide even better decisions. Since we have a history from the financial sector, of course, we are very strong within the financial sector, but we also offer services to small and mid-sized enterprise companies when it comes to trade financing or counterparty risk. We also have a quite wide public offering with a site called Alla Bolag, which is one of the most visited sites in Sweden for company information. And we also offer services towards consumers, such as monitor your own credit score or ID protection services, where we prevent fraud, and also offer insurance elements. We work continuously with improving our accuracy when it comes to credit scores, having different type of scores for different type of user cases. Or we talk about someone buying socks for buy now, pay later. Then you might not be interested in, will this individual have a payment remark, or will this individual not pay me within 12 months? You want to know, will I get paid within 30 days? And there's different type of scoring and data sets that can support this type of different user cases. So we have expanded from just conventional core banking to new verticals as well. We're talking about utilities, telephone subscriptions, buy now, pay later. So we've also adapted toward new type of financial behavior. Looking at the banking sector, a lot of people don't know it, but Swedish banks actually have the lowest non-performing loans across Europe, and had it for roughly 20 years. So we have really good information, and we also have really good processes at the banks. So the lowest credit losses across Europe. The biggest change I've seen in this time, of course, digitalization. 10-15 years ago, we were sitting in front of a computer visiting a bank office. Now today, everything is digital, normally through your phone. So that's an important step. Automatization. We've seen also that financial institutes and consumers also expect more speed in the processes. Everything is going really, really fast nowadays. On the other hand, when it goes really fast, there are risks when it comes to fraud or other elements as well. The main change is, of course, digitalization, but also acceptance from the consumer that everything is really fast. There is a challenge, of course, because more data and more automated processes also increases the number of fraud events. Looking at our offering, we have built an offering to look at what is the risk that this individual are not able to pay you. Then we need to look at what is the risk that this individual doesn't want to pay you. So they are completely different use cases, and we're really strong in assessing the possibility to pay you, and now we're strengthening up looking at the probability that he or she will pay you. It's a new type of service element that we have been working with for some time, and we're starting to see some good traction. But it's not only us. The data, normally in a system, you need to rely upon that the data is correct. What happens when someone manipulates the data from the authorities? How do we discover that? How do we flag that? How do we ensure that you make the right decision on the right type of data? I have a really absurd use case. Like, if you go to the tax authorities and say, like, I made 1 million crowns last year, they won't question you. They will just put in, great, Petter, he made 1 million crowns last year. Now that information might end up in my credit information. You can manipulate your own data, but also we are aware of it, and we also have instances and checks to make sure that the data is accurate, so banks don't make wrong decisions on top of wrong data. So it's quite easier than you think to manipulate data. Since we actually handle the largest private consumer information database in Sweden, GDPR had a huge impact, of course, for us to be able to have a trustworthy service. We also have the Swedish data protection authorities as our main supervisor. And normally when we do product development, we don't only look at what problems do we try to solve. How are we allowed to solve that problem from a regulatory basis? First of all, that it's dangerous with a credit check. It's not dangerous. We have, of course, rules to see, are you shopping around for mortgages? If you buy something on an online web shop, it won't have a huge impact on your credit score. So credit checks aren't that dangerous. With that said, you shouldn't take them just for fun. You should still have a purpose. That's one of the misconceptions. The other one is that a large portion of the Swedish population do believe that we are an authority. We both have educational services for individuals, monitor, learn more about your credit score, how to improve your credit score. And of course, we provide banks and financial institutes and other consumer companies with data to make a well-informed decision. We can both guide them in what data to use, which type of scoring is relevant for my type of use case, and how should I work with the customer life cycle, the full risk process. We are the leading Swedish credit information company. Of course, information coverage. We have unique data, such as the credit register that we've built for roughly 30 years. So that more data and, of course, a better visibility of how many credit checks are being used by which type of company. It gives us the possibility to build really good, accurate models. On top of that, of course, we're very strong when it comes to regulations. Not only in what's happening right now, but also looking ahead, the next coming 2-3 years. How will that impact our customers? What do we need to change? Is it something that's unclear that we need to communicate towards the decision makers or authorities? So we are regulated by Swedish law, of course. We have a license from the Swedish data protection authorities, which regulates what type of data we're allowed to handle, for how long, for what purpose, and how we're able to provide it. So there's a really strong governance structure when it comes to the data system. On top of that, we also source data from public sources, financial institutes, and have a lot of safeguards in place to find data errors. So there's the implementation of the Consumer Credit Directive in Sweden. That will have an impact, for example, on loan brokers, type of license, companies that previously didn't need a license from the Swedish financial supervisors. They now need license to be able to finance different type of goods or merchandise. We're closely monitoring it. We're also looking at the services. The final legislation hasn't been published yet, but we are on top of things and looking over our offering, and that we are able to meet the regulatory demands and also the customer demands. AI, it's both a risk and an opportunity for companies like us. We have a good amount of data, and AI can of course help us leverage that data into more and better insights. But then on the other side, we also are working within the financial sector, which is quite risk-avert. We need to ensure that we have the regulations in place, that we are confident that what we're doing, that we're allowed to do that. We have AI labs, for example, internally, where we look at different concepts and also are in close dialogue with authorities and decision makers how AI can be utilized. We are not using it for credit decisions or credit scoring because there are a lot of regulatory challenges. How do we ensure that we don't discriminate, for example? How do we ensure that we have full transparency in the models? That one still has a way to go before that's being utilized, especially on the consumer side. When it comes to data structuring, on the other hand, when you have good structured data, you can build good insights without AI. But to structure data, AI and machine learning is really, really powerful. We value tradition, but we explore innovation. And I think that what makes us unique in that sense is that we have the legacy of the conventional data and we're combining it with the new data elements, for example, open banking. And combining them, that makes it really, really powerful. Standalone, this is good. Standalone, this is good. But combining them and also teaching how to combine them, that's where you can bring the most value. And since a lot of companies don't have the conventional data, that's where we can make the difference. And I think that what makes us unique in that sense is that we have the legacy of the conventional data and we're combining it with the new data elements, for example, open banking. And combining them, that makes it really, really powerful. Standalone, this is good. Standalone, this is good. But combining them and also teaching how to combine them, that's where you can bring the most value. And since a lot of companies don't have the conventional data, that's where we can make the difference. So we looked into PSD since I started at UC roughly 7 years ago. What will this mean for our type of business? How should we embrace it? And we actually started back in 2017-18 when we merged with Assa Casteto and formed an Ant Group, building a lot of things ourselves. And then realized that we are really good at combining the data set and building insights. We are not great at building technical integrations. We have other partners who are good at that, such as Enable Banking. So we're relying upon Enable Banking's expertise in providing the infrastructure and a high quality service, because that's also so expected of us, good uptime, good performance, and bringing our expertise how to build insights and combine it with the conventional data. So of course it's adding more data to be able to make more accurate decisions or more efficient processes. We use it for several different use cases. Some of them are quite basic, income verification or just verifying the account. But then you have more advanced and we facilitate the open banking services on behalf of our clients. So customers then can ask us, can you help us categorize this data? How can I combine it in, for example, our ability to pay calculation? So we support our customers to facilitate that data. One of the most common use cases is income verification. We have information for tax authorities. We have information that's been stated by the individual in a credit application process. How do we verify this if there's a gap? Either it was previously done with payment slips, with a very high risk of fraud, costly and manual process. Now with open banking, you can have it a more structured and optimized way to ensure higher accuracy in income verifications. It's a lot to do with our customers, like how do we help them in their processes. Our customers are different and they have different needs and have different preferences, especially when it comes to risk. So it's everything from the basic user case to more niched user case, of course, like how can I gain more insights about my consumers, for example. It doesn't need to be financial insights. It could be like I'm offering a streaming service. How can we see that someone what type of other streaming services this individual is using. That type of information could also be utilized in open banking. And we're also looking into PFM services, personal finance services. So we actually have our own personal finance services, especially built from credit information. Now we are starting to add housing valuation, so you can look at your asset side. Then we can start looking at transactional account. Where does your spending go to? The next step would of course be looking at your savings and retirement. So we have a pretty good opportunity to build a good 360 view for all of the individual's personal finances. Income verification is the most obvious case. Something where you have a lot of risk, something that's manual and now can be optimized with really good precision. So that's something that every financial institute does, verify incomes. And it's costly, it's timely, and it's quite easy to solve with open banking. Tax authorities, individual, transaction account. And that's where you actually can create a really good accuracy. And it's also solves a problem for the consumer. That's important. Like looking at open banking services, what job do we solve for the consumer? Income verification. I want to get a loan. Okay, either I can verify this with my open banking data, or I need to go a manual process with some kind of payment slip, perhaps telephone calls, perhaps some kind of statement from my employer. So here I'm also solving the consumer's problem of getting funding. And I think that's one of the best benefits from open banking. We call it thin credit file, when you don't have recurring information. You don't have a stable pattern that impacts your creditworthiness. Providing open banking to be able to complement that data, that's a huge benefit, both for the ones who's making the financial decision and the individual. So open banking, the whole purpose also when it comes to information point of view and the financial industry is to increase the financial offerings towards more individuals. And I think that's very important to bear in mind also the mandate that the financial industry has when it comes to working with open banking data, that we want to have inclusion. And important on that topic is of course how do you work with the data in the right way so you ensure inclusion and not the other way around. And that's where I see both UC, enable banking and companies active within this industry. We have a huge responsibility to educate the financial industry and other type of customers how to work with the data also from an ethical point of view. The best part of working with enabled banking is two things I would like to highlight. Service mindset. Whenever there's something that we need help with, we always get extraordinary help from enabled banking. That's been highlighted both by myself and my colleagues. So we're super happy about the customer care. And the second part is from the business development perspective. Enabled banking knows what's happening in the market, what lies ahead, and helps us also to find new opportunities and solve them together. Since we are working very close with the financial industry, we have one company that worked with open banking data for several years, and they are able to reduce the credit risk with up to 30% with combining conventional credit data together with open banking data. And this is something that we've tracked over time. So we can see that just using our data standalone, that would make them say no to more customers. And just using open banking data, that will also increase their credit losses. But combining those two have made them actually have 30% less risk in their portfolio. Increasing number of customers you can offer the services to, or being able to have the same business volume and take lower risk. So we're super happy with the partnership with enabled banking. But of course, there is an ever-changing world. We see that more and more information becomes available. Individuals are more in control of their information. And I think that enabled banking will be a great partner ahead looking at these type of use cases when it comes to open finance. Every day, more and more data becomes available, and it's also hard to navigate in the data landscape. So I think that's the key, like in figuring out what new data should we work with and how should we work with it. We have a really solid foundation, we have a good structure, we have good legislations, good awareness, but how do we embrace new data access? So my big prediction is that consumers will be more in the center and will be more in control. Who am allowed to access my data for what purposes? and they will also be more conscious about who's accessing their data. I think that their willingness to share the data will increase, of course, but then you need a very clear job that you solve for the consumer. Is it convenience? Is it better insurance terms? Is it better financing conditions? But individual more in control. So the biggest mistake when it comes to financial information is that you probably haven't provided the correct information or right information for that user case. A lot of customers ask for a lot of information, but are they asking for the correct one? I think that's the key as well. The right amount of data to solve the right problem in front of you. And there's both regulatory elements, but also efficiency elements to be gained by improving this across the sector. We are continuously helping our customers, like what amount of data do I need in this process? How much amount of data do I need for ability to pay calculation? Of course, it's the Swedish financial supervisors who decide in the end, but there's always guidance available. So I would like the market to be a lot more cross-border open. And I think that's something where open banking, open finance can help out a lot. For example, for a credit information company, if we would enter the Icelandic market, then we need to source the Icelandic information, but there are Icelandic transaction accounts. I think that will lower the threshold to do cross-border business, to enter new markets, but also help people who, for example, move between different countries. Can I passport my credit history from Sweden to Iceland, to Scotland, and being able to buy a house and get a credit card? That would help out a lot of people. So we actually have already some tips and tricks on how should you think about your credit score and how you can improve it. They are on a quite generic level, but we always try to improve them. How can actually specifically improve it for my situation? So that's something that also open banking can create a lot of opportunities for the individual to better understand my spending, to better understand what they need to change to improve my, for example, creditworthiness. It would probably being able to structure all of my thoughts at the same time, and also being able to communicate on the same wavelength to all individuals so we actually understand each other all the time. I would probably say fish soup with a lot of cream. I normally put in cod and salmon, perhaps some mussels as well, garlic, and some nice bread. I haven't been to Australia yet. It's very fascinating because it's so far away. Then I would say Val Kilmer, because he's both Batman and Iceman in Top Gun. The people here are really fun and hilarious. Even though our company colors are more beige, grey and black, we have a lot of colorful people. So we have contact forms on our webpage. Always feel free to reach out on LinkedIn or pay us a visit in Stockholm Waterfront Building office.